this time, could everybody stand? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You on your toes.
At this time, may we have a roll call, please?
Chair Rich,
Present.
Chair Stanley, Vice Chair Stanley.
Present.
Myself, Susan Lance, Alderwoman Courtney Day.
Here.
Commissioner Remington.
Here.
Commissioner Malecki. Commissioner Kosler.
Here.
Non-voting member Michelle Rente.
Here.
Non-voting member Leah Voss.
He's excused.
Excused. And Kevin Schlater.
Here.
Principal Planner X.
Here.
Bill Borchert.
Here. Excellent. At this time, we'll open it up for any citizens wishing to make a comment. And then we will close the citizen comment period.
Also, Sue, Tom Bria, the city foresters here also.
Oh,
Right.
and what's the name?
Tom Ria.
Spell your last name.
R-I-H.
I was
City Arborist?
City for, yeah, arborist.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. We'll move to the approval of the minutes from the December meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You guys have it? Yes.
There actually is a set of unapproved minutes. So the commission took minutes for the September 9th meeting, but they did not get approved because there was a meeting that was canceled.
Okay.
And so those were in your packet. If there are any changes, if you could please confirm.
Sure. We have a motion to approve the minutes on September 9th.
I'll make the motion again. A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You guys have that. We'll move to letter A, the update on parks maintenance.
Not a lot going on in parks, but guys have been clearing out some of the buckthorn at Legend and Franklin Woods, anywhere else. And also, so at Legend it looks quite different. So between Legend and Park, that shines getting clean. Yeah, when you get a chance. Cleaning out some of the trails too a little bit. We had a vandalized changing table that was replaced. Sometimes people jump on it. Sometimes they can bend the back, but this one was bent way too far, so I solved that. But that's the first one that's been vandalized beyond repair. And it was open.
Thank you. Move to letter B, parks, facilities, reservation, and permitting policies.
I don't have any new information for the commission for this meeting. Requests, I expect to start to have those for pickleball league reservations for the coming year at the next meeting. But if there's any discussion today or items that you want to address before those requests come in, fine.
So to refresh my memory, honoring reservations to the rec department, affiliated with.
Yeah, I would have to research the exact motion language, but it was essentially like a recognized civic organization, so school groups, the rec department. Yeah, if there was a league group that wanted to come forward and request that you recognize them, I think you could make that decision. So far, I'm only expecting the rec department.
Wasn't from the last meeting, there was thought that the rec department could add a fee or something could be added so the city could recoup some costs?
We had a bit of a discussion about that. I haven't raised it directly with them since we all discussed it as a group. Leah, I expect will be here next
And I know
week, so
the mayor said that he was going to start discussions. Have you heard?
we haven't talked about it. So
Excellent. Move on to letter C then. Parks marketing materials.
no update on this item either. So Commissioner Malecki isn't here. I'm hoping to get files from her from the materials that she's already produced to date.
Did her resignation?
I believe it takes effect. She did not wish to be renewed, so she hasn't submitted a resignation letter.
Until March.
Yeah.
Okay. Move to letter D, the community event engagement. The involvement in National Night Out Rodeo.
So these two items, item D and E, are kind of placeholders for you, the commission. I know we've had a discussion about wanting to ramp up some of these activities that you're doing. And later in our agenda, we have the combined Parks and Environmental Commission and Environmental Commission hosts events. And so something to consider over the course of time, but I don't have new material for.
What is the next community event where they would have similar to what we had for trunk or treat?
Their next community event will be Arbor Day.
Arbor Day.
So the city gives away a significant amount of trees, and the city forester can kind of talk about more of that. But they represent the city at that event, participate in the process of giving away those trees, distribute materials to the community. It's not on like the official Arbor Day, it's on a Saturday, and any resident of Franklin can come and take a tree from the list that they select. So it's typically native species and then there's some shrubs, and then they hand out information. One year they gave away seeds as well for native plants. So for them, that date has not been set. They'll be setting it at their next meeting, which is the 22nd, but that is one of their annual events. There's also a citywide cleanup that day. That's kind of part of the.
That's
The Arbor Day is like mid to later.
We always do it the first Saturday of May because that's delayed them being able to dig the handouts. So it's always Saturday the last week.
Is that at the library? Okay. I thought so.
They do the cleanup. Contact Milwaukee. At them. Garbage. Never both of them organize it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would be something that would be even fun for you guys to participate in. They also host talks throughout the year, depending on who's volunteering with the group. They've been able to organize talks about nature programs and recycling. So, but yeah, Arbor Day is their next step.
We'll skip letter E since it's a placeholder. We'll go to F, which is park signage.
This was the item about the kiosks. I don't recall which member requested that it be here, but if there's an update about that.
Well, go ahead.
I did provide this information to the police department. The chief said, it's great. Thank you for letting them know and proceed as we want with it.
Is that the little thing that would go on a sign?
See something, say something? Yeah,
And they said it was fine?
absolutely.
Did you all have an item you wanted to put in the newsletter?
Oh, we talked about how.
Okay, if you would like to do that, the deadline to get materials to the city for the next newsletter is this week. So please send that to me and I'll make sure it gets in the right hands. And I'll copy you when I do that, so discussion directly with
I don't have it digitally. This is the paper copy from the last.
Didn't Karen?
Okay. If she did, so we occasionally have difficulty receiving things over a certain file size, so I have not received. I will follow up with her though.
Move on to letter G.
Can I just,
Oh, sure.
sorry. So at the last meeting, when we talked about this, we also talked about that board and I want to say, Shelley, it said you had a contact at the high school you were going to reach out to possibly have that metal sign. Remember, it would slide in there?
Yeah, I
Isn't
was
that what-
nominated to that, but I didn't.
Yes, you were.
It was not, yeah, voluntold. It wasn't voted on, so are we
Oh.
for sure putting it in the parks? I think it's premature for me to ask the
Oh.
high school if it's not for sure. I don't want to start the ball rolling if we're not putting it in or get approved by this.
On it in the kiosk? Plastic.
It was like a new metal sign. It was tall. It was kind of nice, and it would fit into something, and you could put something on the front and the back, change it out.
Like,
Right.
I thought it was. Now. We were going. How many kiosks?
I think we kind of just, yeah, it was just discussion. But Karen had brought some signboards that could be used. Information could be changed. We don't have any cost yet on what it would be. Just that, could a high school student or MATC student make a frame for a sign? So do we need to vote on if we want to move forward with this?
We got a little time. You're not putting anything to the ground. Okay. So I think maybe we can figure out exactly. Figure out. Greatest shape.
Right.
Just, I don't know. Yeah, sign. I don't know if we want to go with year 4 currently. Then going to read the problem code. But
There's 3 kiosks at Ayla's Franklin Woods. Apparently there were 4. One was, I don't know, damaged or whatever and is gone. Is that right? There was
It was
one.
taken out when Kayla's playground was.
Oh, okay.
the other thought is, what does Franklin have? 17 parks and kiosks that probably multiple. When you all the rest. Put up one sign, see how slowly built. I don't want to give you guys.
Can we use the tourism funds
Yeah.
that we got for printing to make a laminated version to go into the existing kiosk?
Actually,
That river down
Yeah, you too.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
When we do a spring tour, we could couple.
Oh, that's a good idea.
mm-hmm.
Milwaukee County has a really nice by the golf course, some of the trails. Thinner.
Is that like on the Oakley?
Yeah.
Because they do
so
have,
just as you come out, the street that goes down by the golf course there, going,
Comes off of. Goes down to
yeah,
college.
92nd and College.
oh, yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
There's a wooded trail right along that runs right along that college. And then,
I think there's one on
do you know what I'm
68
talking about?
too.
yeah. What,
I'd have to look. Those are all Eagle Scout projects.
okay.
The county has a lot of keys. They're all done differently. None of them were consistent or the same. And the challenge you run into is some are built by others. All harder when they
Nice to have the consistency.
absolutely. Especially. I guess we'll look at some kiosks when we do a park tour. We'll move to letter G, Victory Creek Trail Mowing and Natural Resources issue.
Yep, the commission had requested a little bit of more information about the question of controlled burns and their use for management of these types of grasslands. So I just pulled a little information from the DNR website for you, and the city forester can probably provide a little bit more comment. So, not my area of expertise. So,
Answer whatever questions you may have.
On the map for the prescribed berms,
Yes.
why are they not in Milwaukee? From 2019, there's no evidence on the online DNR map that prescribed berms are
That's
documented.
just what what Wisconsin DNR does for prescribed burns. There are burns being done in Milwaukee. I believe the county does their own burns. Doesn't we're trying to work through. Does a lot of burns. Milwaukee Land Conservancy do all their own burns for the DNR map that the DNR managed lands that they have.
the county does them too, because they always call it Park, but it is Three Bridges Park in the valley.
Where do they post the documentation for prescribed burns in the county? On their page or?
As I know, and City of Muskego does their own as well. A lot of their park.
Is there a written plan for the prescribed burn?
There will be. There will be a burn plan done by the group that would be burned at it into the department. There's wind directions as far as where that's going to go. It lists all the different personnel involved with what happens. Notifying fire departments, have UTVs with water tanks on them, have many certified people that they feel they need. Have us close down hands up as well. I'll be excited.
Do we have inventory of the current vegetation that's in the area?
Yeah, they did that site analysis this fall. There'll actually be more information coming up.
Is there an invasive species that we're getting after in the?
Buckthorn is heavily infested. Past practice mowing it in the fall. And that just kind of knocks it down for that year and stops it part of the next year. Coming back much better. Longer.
And of the 80-something acres that special park is, how many would be burned?
It would be a 3-year rotation. And 25 acres.
Each?
Each year. Yeah. So then every 3 years, the entire prairie part of that will get burnt out. So that way it allows the animals that the rodents not to help. So it's not just a big black patch. Not rotate. Cost savings as well as.
What other areas in Franklin are being targeted with this method of clearing it out and
This is our first spot. There's actually been periods identified to do other spots. Nope, it's actually done in spring primarily because that's when I get that overburden, that grass is burn out and that's the grasses pop up. It can be done in spring and fall.
Is it going to impact the woodland that's part of the
No.
park? What kind of communication are you planning on doing? Are you posting signs in the park beforehand? Like, how are you?
Yeah, we're hoping to put something better
Okay.
and also notifying it.
I think I would suggest putting signage up after you do it, explain why it looks like it does, because that's been a common practice. I've seen that at Three Bridges, and people will find it interesting. So.
Why is this area defined as a special park in our, on the website? What makes this trail special?
The park is under relatively unique conservancy. It's a floodplain conservancy, and there's a lot there that is actually owned by the sewerage district as part of that conservancy. And it's not intended to be like a programmed park, so there's no plan for equipment. So there's a couple of parks that are defined as special parks. Actually, Kaylee is one of them. It's kind of a separate category outside of the scope of what how the Corp thinks about parks. So there's neighborhood, mini, regional parks, size of the park based on the size of the park in the area, and this is a park for its own sake in a sense. Yeah, it's kind of a term coming from.
I'm the only one with a question.
They're good questions.
What is the ask of this commission in this role of doing a prescribed burn?
I would like to see you guys communicate with the public about this, since you now have more information than a lot of other folks do. I get people at my counter in planning and engineering also gets those folks with concerns about this park in particular as like a natural area, and so I'm sure the Common Council will also be getting questions. But yeah, and then of course refer people to staff who aren't comfortable with that. But since it's the first time it's being done in Franklin, but it is the best practice, like I hadn't thought of you guys taking a motion in support of it, but since it does have to go to Common Council, that might be if you want to do that. So.
And typically when we have changes to landscape, you would get an environmental impact statement. Would that be done by the city or? You don't need it for a prescribed burn?
Yeah, I mean, from planning's point of view, the actual design of the park isn't changing in any way. Part of the maintenance of it.
That it was a flooding. What was the term used?
A conservancy.
Conservancy. So would it affect any of the water runoff or anything by getting rid of all the vegetation?
I mean, yes and no. There will be some changes to how water would behave on the site as a result of, vegetation being temporarily removed. But the way in which it's a conservancy is basically the floodplain that's there. There is an active floodway, so there's an area of the park that in a flood event would have moving water in it, and so that is not an appropriate place for development of any kind. And so it's been taken off of the development side, creating. My understanding is the project was really something that happened with MSD, and the city took over most of the land for one of the lots. So there's grant funding that does these kinds of things. But yeah, a big chunk of the southern portion of Victory Creek is.
Is there any date, tentative date?
Most of the year would be March. Beginning of May, because it's close to the nest and ground. It want to be done before. So it's very weather dependent. There's enough dry enough that air can actually and on wind. Like when they get the call, and they look ahead in their weather and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna come out and burn it." Pretty short.
How far in advance will you set a date?
It's up to the people that burn it as far as when they get to the best time. There could be snow cover, open.
People that burn it.
But people that who burns it?
Is it an outside?
Yeah, it'd be the Pheasants Forever. Chapter Pheasants Forever.
Oh.
They do this throughout the county and throughout other these.
It just nags me that I seem to remember there was a burn there when Kristen Wilhelm was, and she was.
They did some burns out on 116th Street, Milwaukee Lane.
Or another park that would have been in her
it's like Carity Woods or Carity Prairie. Prairie grass. They've burned that, but not up there.
Mud Lake.
Yeah, Grobschmidt Park possibly. They come at a few.
And what about the smoke plumes from the burn? Are kids going to be in school at the time when we're doing this burn, or?
Yeah, it's potential, but they'd be favoring a westerly. Also, the consideration. Hopefully.
I feel like I know the answers to these questions, but I just want to throw them out there. Kind of going off of some of Commissioner Stanley's questions, with the burning of the vegetation on the ground, we're not going to be impacting any sort of like runoff or anything if we have a very wet spring or something where we're taking away some of the ground clutter, where we might have some potential runoff issues for some of the neighboring properties.
No, because there's going to be a 30-foot fire break, and there's a wall that would stop anything. There's still some litter layer there, and it's actually very wet, so
yeah. So given some of the issues that we've had with grading and wetness and runoff with other development areas, maybe throwing a sentence in whatever that communication you're making in the newsletter, or maybe more specifically to the residents in the area, that this will not impact, just to assuage any fears that they have that all of a sudden, if it is a really rainy spring, they're going to have a flood in their backyard kind of thing. So just kind of getting ahead of that concern, just because I know we've had some things that were not related to this, but some grading issues with some developments in other parts of the city. And then, is this something that potentially this organization, the DNR or the city, is looking at other parks within Franklin that might need this as well in the future?
It'd be nice, but we're a long ways, I think. I think the next closest one would be maybe Ernie for that. Very small. It would never probably be. This is the largest portion that this would manage. For sure.
Well, the Southwest Park will need badly.
It's currently
that's a
being
good point on
farmed.
parks.
So there's also the Conservancy there, though, that's south of that. Southwest Park is currently being farmed. Is it typical to burn after you're converting?
There's a lot that is farmed.
Okay.
And also in the county, they've been cutting down buckthorn tile in the.
Yeah, the practice is to not move it so that you don't spread the seed, but it does start to develop. So It would be worth a conversation about that.
Kind of gouging out a new trail and back there.
There's a lot along the west side of the woods that's all overgrown.
Which part? Southwest?
It's a beneficial management tool. The only problem is you do need to make sure that the burn is actually benefiting the plant benefit. It might just be grasses, and if they're just using grasses, burning it, pretty much just. It's more like it's good practice, especially for your plant because that burn that new punish. A grassy, tall grassy, not to be as beneficial. Establish a prairie was quite costly. And spray weed pop up.
Have any other questions? Want to make a motion? Back.
I don't think it's
It's up to you if you want to provide some direction and feedback to common council. Who's preparing?
We will be doing. I mean, it would just show that.
I know. I feel like DPW is already moving forward with the plan, so I'm not sure why we would have to put our thumbprint on it. We're asking more questions than we're providing feedback. I don't think any of us are prescribed burn experts. And it's all very new to me and interesting and effective, I guess. I have an acre of wildflowers on my property. I'd like to have it done there. So call that in. But that's how I feel. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners.
Is it something we can come observe? Watch, burn stuff down.
I would say that'd be the closest.
Yeah, it's
probably one in the park.
Sure.
We'll move on to letter H, the 2025 meeting schedule.
Yep, so there's two items here. So your meeting dates are set at the call of the chair, but I'm going to be out of the office for the week prior to next month's meeting and will not, for 2 weeks prior. And I won't be able to prepare a packet for that meeting date. So I was hoping you would indulge me by moving the meeting to the 17th. That's something that I'm okay with. Would we have a quorum?
So from the 10th to the 17th.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing it on the 7th.
There wasn't a decision made. We talked about it briefly, but
It's a holiday.
it is a holiday.
Oh,
City Hall is open.
President. I'm fine with it. So that works.
are we doing do we have to motion on this one, or?
It's at the call of the chair.
Yeah, we'll just move to the 17th. And we'll send out an email.
Okay.
Also, I looked back in the 2017 packet that I had, and I have these materials on the trails. So I haven't copied. This last month we said those people come back at our February meeting, and have this copy. 17.
Yeah, and thank you for providing. And then the other item under this was we have talked about having a spring tour of parks to make recommendations about repairs, maintenance, etc. So if there's a date that you guys would prefer, I feel like this is something that is probably too early. Right? So Earth Day is April 22nd. Arbor Day will be, the city's event will be May 3rd. That's not a good day. But like, we make a date in May would probably be the best bet of like not getting terrible weather.
Sure, we want to shoot like maybe on Saturday.
That is a
Shoot tentative.
Mother's Day.
Oh, nope.
I can't come.
Sure. We'll pick this one in February.
Okay.
We'll have a better take on the weather.
I mean, I'll just let these guys tell me when it comes to weather.
Sure.
They have the knowledge.
The last thing is combined parks environmental. So, from my understanding, Mayor last time, environmental commission has one person left.
No, so there are currently 4 members. 1 alderperson and 3 members of the public. They have fairly consistently had 4 to 5 members. There's been a couple of reasons why the staff has thought that this would be an appropriate action to take. Some of them are administrative, that it would reduce the number of meetings that we have to produce work product for, the amount of time that spent after normal business hours. But then there are also some practical reasons. Like the item like the controlled burn is something those discussions have happened in Environmental Commission, and something they were eager to happen in this as well. The new development ordinance will have some recommendations about using public lands as conservancy lands to receive natural resource mitigation and conservation work out of development. So that's something that the Environmental Commission would have review over, and then you would also have review over as to the location, appropriateness for a given city's property. So there's a few practical reasons, and then so the city attorney prepared an action sheet for the last commission meeting or the common council meeting. I wasn't available due to some of the timing, so it's going to be on the next common council agenda for a discussion. I don't know exactly what will happen in terms of if they'll take action on it at that point. There are a number of kind of administrative pieces that also need to be resolved in terms of the ordinance currently calls out a parks director. That person doesn't exist in the organizational chart, so call it Kevin. But yeah, guess what?
Congratulations, Kevin. Other duties as assigned.
Yeah, so there's some administrative work that still needs to go into how that would look, but the item is going to common council this month.
And they're going to make the decision if we combine?
Yeah, so it requires a change to the municipal code, which is, that's the purview of the common council legislature.
So do we have a vote on it or not?
I mean, you can make a recommendation or provide commentary, but ultimately the municipal code is the purview of the common council. So.
Does the commission stay the same size, or the members of the other commission then fill empty here, or?
That's a great question, and one of the administrative pieces that the original draft of the ordinance recommended just dividing it into an 11-person commission. That seems like a lot. My recommendation would be to only have one alderperson. There are some folks that are going to be leaving through attrition from this commission, and then from that commission as well, probably. So it will probably mean that your commission does get bigger by a member or two. I am not sure what that will look like yet. So hopefully not 11. That's too many.
But I will gladly take thoughts and opinions to that meeting and voice them as the representative of this commission.
I think the main, we've had some meetings. We've had to that's without even factoring environmental. So we could either have to quicker, move to a bigger picture, not work hours arguing about it. Doesn't. I think we that are put things. What we recommended hasn't gone through. These problems out of the way. You should have to. Picture.
But I do think it would kind of be nice to possibly have little smaller groups, because sometimes we discuss things, and as Karen mentioned, she's not here, but then we don't do anything about it. And it would be nice to push things through a little better.
Thank you for the reminder. I've included your administrative rules. These are a little bit different than what's in the ordinances, but you are in theory allowed to create subcommittees. And so especially with questions of like the park watch or community events, those kinds of things, it might be logical to do that kind of thing once the commissions are combined. The caveat is that I need to talk to the clerk's office about how that would work in terms of the relationship to staff support. It would be my preference not to provide direct support to those commissions in terms of, you guys would be producing your agendas. We would help you publish them, but you'd be doing your own research, packet compiling that. So I'm putting it out there that is an option. Because I know that is a frustration. Environmental Commission has that same frustration of like, we have all this stuff we want to do and we can't meet.
And I'm not putting a blame on anybody, but it sometimes would seem if we had a committee that could meet once, bring back what we discussed, vote on it, and somehow get it to move forward, because it just sort of stagnates, and that's why we keep bringing things back.
Yeah,
That's why you drop off of these. Awesome.
Yep, I hear that loud and clear. I'm hoping that that's something that we can figure out a way to empower you guys a little bit.
So we really have no say ever.
Ultimately, no. I mean, you should come and make whatever commentary you'd like to, but the decision lies with Common Council.
We can't make a motion of how we feel or anything like that.
You can make a recommendation about it. If you aren't comfortable with it, the recommendation not. The Common Council would certainly take that into account, and we can put it at the council action sheet. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is.
Well, I recommend not just have some forced on us. We have nothing. They gotta leave that all night.
That's not the goal, but I hear you. So
I agree. With the Parks Commission, we only have a certain parameter that we have to focus on, whereas environmental is much bigger. I mean, they're talking about the lights by Carmex and or by the soccer Croatia Park and how it's going to affect, lighting and stuff. So now we're talking the atmosphere and, areas outside of my area of expertise. Not that I'm a parks expert per se, but just seems like you're doubling down on the requirements for volunteers. Seems interesting to me. A subcommittee of the Parks Commission, is that a possibility? Like environmental, there's an environmental subcommittee on the Parks Commission that would be exclusive for their own meetings, but that we could provide the quorum that they require to move their items forward.
Aren't they having trouble having a quorum now? Or are you saying adding somebody from here to come?
They haven't been meeting because they can't meet the quorum, so then they can't move anything forward.
Right.
I don't know.
Just an idea, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because then they continue, because I mean, I know that they are experts in a lot of things that we're not experts in, you know. I don't know much about easements and buffer zones and things that are required for making environmental decisions, and a lot of the things that are coming to that commission are, you know, we have a plan, we're moving forward with it, and now we want to get the approval to do it with the environmental committee.
So that's a great point. What you're referring to mostly is the process for what's called a natural resource special exception. It's a type of variance that the Environmental Commission has reviewed over under the development. We're in the process of updating our development ordinance. They will still have review over under the recommended draft ordinance. The commission varies a lot in terms of their level of expertise when it comes to different areas of environmental issues. So there's one commissioner who is very knowledgeable and has a biology background. It sounds like you listened to the most recent. There were 2 NRSCs. That was actually a special meeting for those because we have not been able to have quorum. So we had just those 2 agenda items because those development proposals were stuck, and they were able to make the time. But that category of item, we get between 2 and 5 of them a year. It's a type of variance. Franklin has a local ordinance for natural resource protection that is over and above state and federal regulation of things like basically all water resources, woodland. The new development ordinance includes that variance process as well, and some changes that will require, the ordinance will require compensation. So one of the things that the Environmental Commission always talks about, discusses, makes recommendations about, they're a recommended body to Common Council. What kinds of compensation are you making for impacts to natural resources? So if someone's filling in a wetland in one part of a development, they're required to create a wetland somewhere else. The current ordinance requires them to do that on the same property, unless they get permission from Plan Commission not to do that. So one of the things that's changing is that we're trying to enable like a natural resource credit program that would allow people to create a wetland or restore a wetland on public property or in a land conservancy. And so there is kind of a symbiosis there of you guys are the stewards of the city's public property. And then when it comes to the technical elements of it, I would say that I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole but I'm typically the reviewer of those variance applications. And the expectation isn't that you know every species name or whatever. Is this request reasonable? That's really what they're weighing in on. And then if the request is reasonable, what does the city expect to see from the developer in terms of making up for what they're taking away? So there's some ordinance guidance about that, and I typically provide recommendations. More knowledgeable commission members might be like, you know, this type of tree. I actually think Mary would have a lot to say about, well, there's birds in this area, don't touch it. You know what I mean? So those kinds of things are, even though that commission, just like you, has citizen expertise, which is super important to all of these processes. So, but when it comes to the technical review, you know, we provide you with a packet of information that describes the request, what the ordinance requires, and then your role is to determine whether their request is reasonable or not, and make a recommendation.
Do they provide any guidance such as this does seem like a reasonable request, or this does not appear to be like a good thing to do?
I make a recommendation about the reasonableness of the request and whether the applicant is conforming with their proposal to the requirements of the ordinance. We very often get applicants who don't. So,
and then is there like, similar to Plan Commission, there's like a technical report or something that you all provide. So like for for the good of the group. So I'm on Plan Commission, and I don't pretend to know everything about every type of development that comes through and what zoning it meets or doesn't meet or what qualifications they need exceptions for. But whoever in planning is assigned to that project, they complete a pretty detailed report that kind of outlines what's being asked for, where there are variances with city code, and what their overall recommendation is. So it is very helpful. You don't have to know everything about everything, because they kind of spell it out for you, and then it's your job as the commission member to determine if that is a reasonable, thing to do in the city. So in that regard, a lot of that is kind of laid out for you, and then it's just deciding if that is reasonable or not. So that those reports have really helped me in Plan Commission, kind of get up to speed, and after doing it for a little over a year now, years, it's become pretty easy to sit and kind of go through them because you know what is happening.
When the environmental commission meets, how long are their meetings usually?
Unless if there's an NRSC, it might go over, but they almost never are long. So depending on what they have to talk about, it could be less. They usually stick to that 1 hour limit. I would be happy to provide an example. This is another great point, and I don't do this at Plan Commission, but would be happy to. At Environmental Commission, I provide training on an annual basis. So we go through the requirements of the ordinance, take a look at a sample document. I answer questions. It's something that in that way, so when they get a new, or whenever there's a number, just do a refresher. So, and that's something that a practice I would continue. Do you have a recommendation you'd like to make or a motion you'd like to make?
Why don't you word it? You're better at putting it together.
Commissioner Stanley, the wordsmith.
Park Commission would like to recommend that. Park.
How do we feel? I'm not sure about everybody's opinion of it. I see the similarities and that you pointed out. I'm sure we all can see some similarities. And I see the benefit for being able to form a quorum for environmental. But I've not seen us have a good
benefit for
us.
Benefit. Yeah, it's an additional scope that feels outside of our purview. And I don't know that you're having problems with, keeping people on that commission. I feel like you're going to pass it on to this commission. I do, because we've lost one member, right, who is not going to renew. And it's just going to belabor our efforts to get our parks and this new planned park and this prescribed burn and this trail area, those kinds of initiatives that we would like to see move forward with parks in particular. I feel like it's going to drag us back further. That's my opinion. The proposal would be that I would say we don't support a consolidation of the two commissions unless they were written into a city ordinance to be a subcommittee of Parks Commission and then do their own agenda items, and then we just vote with them some sort. That they would give presentations to us of their final decisions, and then we would help them to move it forward as recommendations to Common Council. Or not at all.
How's your feedback? How do you feel about what?
Yeah.
I don't think they.
I think my initial reaction to both of your feedback is that this commission has some legitimate concerns about how what your role is. in the management of the parks and the decision making, that this is exacerbating. Discussion is exacerbating. And expressing that be the most beneficial thing to do. Something that I think has been chafing everybody a little bit, confusion about department responsibilities, the discussion of the software, all of that is, there's a question of, how effective are you? That you're often from you and from environmental commission. They have that area of review that they have a recommendation. But when it comes to their other projects, they similar. So that, I guess that's my reaction. I totally hear you. This is one option that's been proposed to address those issues, but it may not be the best option. So.
Sounds like we'd have to go through full education.
Yeah, and that's,
we're not, we do parks. That's not our interest.
Well, I feel a little bit better, not that I'm saying I would want to combine, but I feel better knowing that they give you information on, because we're not experts in that. But our meetings sometimes are getting longer and longer, and I would really like to rather stay longer on a meeting and focus on something and get it done. Not, we're going to keep bringing it back and bringing it back. Get it done and then move on.
I would love it if you guys could make the time to come and speak during the citizen comment period. There's an open comment period. You get 3 minutes to say whatever you want about swear words. Do the comment council every meeting, and I've tried to capture, especially here. This has Alderwoman Day for that. So
when's the meeting?
The 21st. Next.
And it's the first thing, so you don't. So if it ends up being a barn burner meeting, you don't have to sit through all of it.
Oh, it's the first thing on the agenda, but you would be citizen comment.
The citizen comment period is the first thing on the agenda, yeah.
But when's
and
the
topic? We can maybe talk Shirley and Maggie into trying to get it up higher if y'all come in, or if they don't, I can make a motion to take something out of order if people show up, so that you're not waiting for us to squabble about other.
Okay. Just for the record, I would like to make a motion now. Parks Commission from the environment.
Second.
Sure.
Want to do a roll call?
Wait, can I just get the motion done? Maintain Parks Commission separate. From environmental. Okay. And that was Marion. You did a second? Mike?
I did.
Oh, Chris, sorry.
So now you.
Oh, okay. Chair? Alderwoman Day.
I'm going to abstain for this meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Kosler.
I'll go along with it.
Yes, that's
Yes.
a yes. And I don't know enough. I have to abstain. Did everybody?
We have no new business, and the next meeting has moved to February 17th on Dead President's Day. Excellent. We'll see everybody then. Thank you.
I will bring you chocolate from